She unexpectedly crashed into a black SUV. What the Mafia boss revealed changed everything forever. Emily staggered out of the hospital, her feet dragging along the bustling sidewalk of her Chicago neighborhood. After a 24-hour shift in the ER, the exhaustion weighed heavily in her bones. She maneuvered through throngs of people, her mind racing with whispers of bills, overdue tuition for Lily, and countless missed moments with her daughter. Just then, without warning, she collided with an imposing black SUV. The impact sent adrenaline surging through her. The world around her froze as she stared into the dark, tinted windows, the reality of her situation hitting harder than the crash itself. The driver emerged, an impeccably dressed man, Victor. His presence was magnetic yet foreboding, an aura of danger trailing behind him. Emily's heart raced, but it wasn't just from the accident, it was from the thrill of uncertainty. He smiled, revealing a sense of camaraderie that twisted into a knot of warning in her gut. "I hope you're okay," he said, his voice smooth but carrying a weight that made her skin prickle. "I have something that could help you. Something you need." For a moment, the world dimmed around Emily. Was he implying what she thought? The economy had been merciless, her nursing salary a band-aid over gaping wounds. She stared into his piercing eyes, her throat dry. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Victor leaned closer, lowering his voice. "I can offer you an opportunity. A way to ease your financial burdens for a price." The promise hung between them, like a ripe fruit waiting to be plucked. Emily felt her pulse quicken. Was this the answer to her silent prayers, or a trick that would pull her deeper into darkness? She shook her head, a rush of panic rising within her. "What kind of opportunity?" she demanded, both intrigued and terrified. Each word fell like a weight on her conscience, her moral compass spinning wildly. She envisioned Lily, the rebellious streak in her daughter that wasn't just typical teen angst but a reflection of the tough world they lived in. The thought of being able to give her a better life, free from worry, clawed at her hard-won values. As Emily wrestled with her choices, the streets of Chicago surrounding her began to blur. What was she willing to compromise for her family? To what lengths would she go? The longer she stood there, caught in the web of his intentions, the heavier the uncertainty settled in her gut. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A nervous flutter tore through her as Victor fell silent, his dark eyes searching her face for signs of resolve. The air seemed to thicken, pressing down on her as if the city itself held its breath. Could she really walk away from this? Could she gamble her ethics for a chance at security? The stakes grew higher every moment, the unkempt threads of her life intertwining with shadows she had never dared to explore. Suddenly, as if the universe was testing her, a loud crash erupted from behind them. Emily turned instinctively, heart racing. The distraction yanked her back into reality. But in that brief moment, she caught a glimpse of Victor's expression, detached, calculating. The warning bells rang louder in her mind. She stood at the precipice, staring into the abyss of his offer. What was at stake wasn't just her financial stability, it was the fragile bond she had with Lily, her only child, and the values she had fought so hard to uphold. The decision loomed, a heavy weight of uncertainty squeezing her chest. As a rival vehicle skidded past, sirens wailing in the distance, Emily realized that her collision with Victor was only just beginning and she hadn't a clue how far fate would push her. Emily blinked in the chaos, her mind flooded with conflicting thoughts. The moment had crystallized into something that felt profoundly unsettling. Victor was unlike anyone she had ever encountered. His polished exterior hinted at power and influence, elements foreign to her daily grind, a hospital filled with routine and familiar faces. Yet beneath that surface, she sensed a tumultuous current, one she could not ignore. Rubbing the back of her neck, trying to shake off the weight of dread, she took a step back. What exactly do you mean by an opportunity? She needed clarity, a rippling light in an ocean of darkness. Every word he spoke felt like a thread, either binding her to the abyss or weaving her toward salvation. Victor's lips curled into a smirk, a mixture of amusement and something darker simmering inches away from her. Think of it as an investment. I recognize potential when I see it. You could be more than just a nurse, you could be part of something bigger. His voice slipped through the air, like honey laced with poison. Emily's heart quickened, but not with fear alone. There was something undeniably enticing about his offer. Internally, she grappled with her options. A taste of liberation from financial strain was seductive, yet a chasm of moral conflict yawned wide beneath her. She often envisioned a life where Lily could thrive without worry, but was this cost acceptable? Would accepting help from the likes of Victor implicate them in a web she couldn't untangle? I need more information, she finally replied, her determination returning slowly. The words felt empowering, a decisive turn in a narrative spiraling out of control. What do you need from me? Victor behaved as if her response satisfied a hidden hunger. You wouldn't be doing anything illegal, he responded, leaning in closer, that magnetic presence seemingly drawing her toward the precipice of a fateful leap. Just a few strategic nursing consultations for my, let's call it an enterprise. His eyes glinted under the city lights, shining with possibilities that flickered like the flames of a risk-laden night. Strategic nursing consultations. The phrase hung in the air, foreign yet exhilarating. Emily envisioned various scenarios, a temporary role that pulled her out of the mundane, a possible escape from endless shifts and pennies counted at the end of the week. But the duality of its nature gnawed at her, a conflict between professional integrity and the dire need for solutions that echoed across her life. As she contemplated, her instincts sharpened. The street noise faded, the sirens turned into distant whispers, overshadowed by the overwhelming focus of the man in front of her. Could this be the spark she needed for both her and Lily? Ultimately, she chose to engage more deeply, using her past experiences as a makeshift ladder to scramble higher in a daunting game. I'll consider it, she said, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. While the prospect seemed enticing, an obstacle still loomed: how to uncover the reality behind Victor's words without losing herself in the process. Victor nodded, satisfaction stirring in his eyes. Smart choice, Emily. But let me make one thing clear, there are consequences to every decision, so tread carefully. His warning floated through the air, lingering like the fading sunlight as the twilight descended over the city. As they parted ways, she felt the gravity of her choice enveloping her. A simmering mix of exhilaration and dread colored her thoughts. What was the real cost of this new path? Emily walked home, each step heavy with contemplation. The world ahead shimmered with uncertainty, but she realized something vital within herself: her ability to negotiate the labyrinth of choices was growing. Yet a profound question lingered: would her discovery herald her transformation, or would it consume her completely? With a new resolve lighting her path, she entered her apartment, only to find Lily sprawled on the couch, phones and half-finished homework littering the coffee table. Emily's heart pinched. How would she explain her decision without revealing the potential storm brewing in the background? And at that moment, she knew with chilling clarity, it was time for a reckoning. She would have to face more than just Victor's proposition. She was about to confront her deepest fears, and the revelation of who she might become loomed just ahead. As she prepared to speak, Emily wondered, was she ready to share the truth with her daughter, or would keeping it buried prove safer? This decision could alter the very foundation of their lives. Emily stood frozen in the doorway, the weight of Victor's proposition pounding in her ears like a relentless drum. Thoughts swirled, grappling for clarity amidst the turbulent storm of her emotions. The apartment felt stifling, shadows crept along the walls, mimicking the doubts that entwined her heart. Mom. Lily's voice pierced the silence, snapping Emily back to the present. The innocence in her daughter's eyes ignited a protective instinct deep within her. How could she explain the danger of her new reality without overwhelming her child? "What is going on?" Lily asked, tilting her head, noticing the heaviness in the air. Emily forced a smile, trying to mask the apprehension. "Just thinking about some changes at work, honey. Nothing to worry about." But the lie twisted uncomfortably in her throat, a bitter pill she had to swallow for Lily's sake. "Are they going to make you work more? I need your help with the project." Lily's brows knitted together, the concern evident. She hesitated. Helping Lily meant standing her ground, but deep down, she felt the pull of temptation that Victor had offered. "We'll figure it out. I promise." How could she justify her allure to money and status when her role as a mother required nurturing and stability? As the night deepened, Emily sat at the small kitchen table, sorting through the invoices scattered like breadcrumbs of her life. Each bill felt like a weight dragging her down, bringing with it the despair of monotony. She had spent too long being swallowed by routines. Victor's proposition echoed back, a siren's call promising a reprieve. How could she deny that hidden within his words lay the potential for something transcendent? She could envision a world where their lives were unshackled from the chains of financial worry, yet every dream was marred by the collision of dark morality creeping in. Maybe it was time for an awakening. Drawing a deep breath, Emily grabbed her laptop, fingers poised over the keyboard. Research about Victor's enterprise spilled onto the screen. The more she discovered, the more the shadows blurred. A mix of boldness and fear danced in her chest as she scrolled through dark corners of the internet, whispers of his connections, the dealings that straddled legality and illicit escapades. But instead of backtracking from fear, a sense of empowerment surged within her. She was capable of navigating the intricacies of human dynamics, hadn't she done so daily in the hospital? Each patient a puzzle, each family a web of emotions. She had learned to read between the lines, to decipher needs buried beneath layers of concern and pain. Was this not the same? Suddenly, her phone buzzed. A message from Victor lit up the screen, and as she read it, a familiar chill slithered down her spine. "Looking forward to your decision. There are things at stake greater than you realize." Emily's hands trembled, the call to risk growing harder to ignore. It was a reminder that every choice came with a price, and her next step could lead her down an uncharted path. She glanced back toward the couch where Lily had fallen asleep, peaceful and oblivious to the storm brewing around them. This realization drove Emily's resolve. If she chose to step into Victor's world, she would protect her daughter at all costs, including sacrificing her own comfort zone. The moves she made from here on would be deliberate, calculated. She would wear the mask of confidence, but deep inside, she vowed not to lose herself. Tomorrow, she would meet Victor again, engaging fully with this unsettling opportunity. The fear of losing everything clashed with the desire for something more. The stakes were high, but what was the alternative remaining stagnant? As the moonlight bathed their small apartment, Emily whispered a promise to herself. "I will not be a pawn. I will write my own rules." She understood the journey was just beginning, a tightrope walk over a chasm of uncertainty. In that moment of resolve, she knew one thing: she was ready to confront not just Victor, but the very essence of who she was becoming. The truth would emerge, and whatever lay ahead, it would shape her into the woman she was destined to be. And so the dawn awaited, a new day filled with choices that could either forge her path to freedom or entrap her in shadows she hadn't yet fully encountered. Would she thrive or falter under the relentless pressure? Emily rubbed her temples and took a final deep breath. Tomorrow would reveal the nature of the truth awaiting her. The morning sun streamed through the small kitchen window, illuminating the chaotic remnants of the night before. Emily's thoughts raced as she sipped her coffee, each sip an anchor in the whirlpool of uncertainty. Today was the day she would finally meet Victor and confront the fate she had slowly been leaning towards with every passing moment. Lily was already awake, sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, engrossed in her art supplies. The bright colors danced against the stark white paper, a contrast to the pressure building within Emily. Each stroke her daughter made reminded her of the innocence she fought to protect. How could she step into a world that could engulf that innocence to enhance her own survival? "What are you drawing?" Emily asked, attempting to keep her voice steady, suppressing the heaviness in her chest. "Just a picture of us. Look!" Lily exclaimed, displaying a colorful portrait of two stick figures, one taller than the other, with a big sun looming overhead. "That's South US enjoying the park." Emily's heart swelled with warmth, paired with an icy knot of dread that twisted around her core. "It's beautiful, honey. We'll go to the park this weekend, I promise." She was determined to fulfill that promise, yet a nagging voice whispered that the possibility of freedom and financial stability was pulling her away from that simplicity. Losing her edge from the pressures of life, she felt the old version of herself teeter on the brink of disappearing. Was she truly ready to gamble her morality for something that glittered but could tarnish easily? Arriving at the cafe where she agreed to meet Victor, the warmth of the sunlight was replaced by a chilled air of anticipation. Each step felt treacherous, as if the ground might crumble beneath her. Inside, the aroma of freshly ground coffee swirled around her, momentarily distracting her from the inner turmoil. Victor was already seated, a magnetic presence behind a doused smile. As Emily approached, his calm demeanor felt at odds with the anxiety buzzing through her veins. "You made it," he said, gesturing to the empty chair across from him. "Yes, I did," she replied, taking a seat but aware of the decision she was about to engage with. "You seem different today," he noted, eyes narrowing slightly. "More prepared?" She felt a flicker of confidence awaken within her, though uncertainty lurked beneath the surface. "I've been thinking a lot about your proposal." "Good." His voice rolled smoothly, feeding into the tension that had coiled around them. "I want you to understand that it's more than just an opportunity. It's about control, power, and seizing what is rightfully yours." Control. The word resonated, digging into the roots of her being. For years, she had been at the mercy of circumstances beyond her control. Was this the moment to reclaim that power? "What do you mean?" She leaned in, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. With each word he spoke, she fought against the luring promise of a life vastly different from her own. "Your life can change. You have skills, Emily. Skills that can be used. Think of it: financial security, respect, a network to ensure stability for you and Lily," he urged, enthusiasm spilling from his words like honey. The reality of her life wrapped around her thoughts, bills that piled up like mountains, the threat of inadequate living looming in their future. She contemplated the cost of choosing this path, feeling as though Victor had pulled back the curtain to reveal another world. Yet, the clarity that emerged from the darkness brought uncertainty. Could she navigate this precarious game without losing herself? As their conversation continued, Emily felt the duality of pressure and awakening surge within her, recognizing the tantalizing edge of a power she never knew she had. She would not blindly follow Victor's lead, she would carve her own way. Then the cafe door swung open, and a man moved through a heaviness in his stride that sent a jolt through the air. Emily's heart skipped as she registered his familiar face, a former colleague, one who had once taken a stand against corruption. The moment felt electric, altering the course of her resolve. What did his presence mean? Was it a signal, a warning, or something else entirely? As Victor caught sight of the newcomer, his expression shifted, curiosity morphing into guarded caution. Emily's mind raced. Here was an unexpected complication. Would she risk everything for a chance at power, or would this sealing moment reveal the very cracks in her new foundation? The ground felt unsteady, and she was about to tread into deeper waters, one decision leading her to inevitable confrontation. The stakes had just been raised. Would she have the courage to stand firm? Her throat tightened with apprehension. It was time to choose her path, and the shadows were closing in. The air shifted palpably as recognition settled like a stone in Emily's stomach. Her former colleague, Daniel, was not just a face from her past, he was a reminder of the values she had held dear, the integrity that had once defined her professional identity. But now, seated across from Victor, she felt caught between two worlds, one that thrived on ambition and power, the other rooted firmly in principles. Emily. Daniel's voice cut through the weight of the moment, pulling her from her thoughts. What are you doing here? The concern etched in his brow deepened her unease, an unstated question hanging between them. I'm just having a chat, she replied, her voice tight, but she felt the urge to defend her presence. Meeting a friend. The words tasted bitter on her tongue, cloaked in half-truths that felt foreign. Victor's composed demeanor faltered slightly, an unintended crack in his facade as he appraised Daniel with dawning recognition. Emily felt a sudden surge of pressure as if the walls were closing in, both men locked in a silent standoff, assessing the stakes of their hidden histories. Friends can be misleading, Daniel said, his tone tinged with caution. Especially when they're tied to dangerous ventures. He shifted his gaze back to Emily. Be careful. There are choices at play here that can compromise everything you stand for. Is that why you're here? Victor interjected smoothly, a hint of an edge creeping into his voice. To lecture Emily on morality? He leaned back, crossing his arms as if to widen the divide between them. Emily glanced between them, feeling the intensity wrap around her like a vice. I'm not a child, Daniel. I can make my own decisions, she asserted, pushing against the rising tide of doubt. But even as she said the words, she felt their fragility, they echoed with uncertainty rather than confidence. Every decision has its repercussions. Are you ready to face the consequences of this one? Daniel pressed, his eyes alight with urgency. There's a fine line between ambition and deceit. I've witnessed it tear people down from the inside out. The words struck her because they held the weight of truth, and she could feel the integrity of her choices hang in the balance. She squeezed her hands into fists under the table, fighting the rush of conflicting emotions. Could she step into a world fueled by manipulation without losing herself? Was the risk worth the promise of power as Victor described? I appreciate your concern, really, Emily said, brushing aside the tension. But I need to figure this out for myself. Victor tilted his head with a slight smirk, as if enjoying the spectacle of this collision. You'll have to make a choice, Emily, he said, leaning forward. But understand this: staying on the sidelines will leave you vulnerable. The moment you leave that cafe, your journey begins. Take the reins, or be swept away. Caught in the swirl of their conflicting energies, Emily pushed her chair back abruptly. I need a moment to think, she stated, needing space to breathe, to reassess. She turned and strode toward the restroom, the footsteps echoing the tumult in her heart. It was increasingly clear that her decisions affected more than just her own future, they wrapped tightly around Lily and the very integrity she wished to uphold. In the silence of the small washroom, she stared at herself in the cracked mirror. The woman staring back felt unfamiliar, as if a stranger were hidden behind her reflection. A flicker of resolve sparked within her. She wanted to be someone who embraced growth without losing her essence. Yet, the shadows lingered at the edge of her consciousness, whispering questions of loyalty, morality, and what success truly meant. It was all too easy to get lost in the allure of power, especially when the stakes involved the safety of her daughter. Taking a deep breath, she wiped a bead of sweat from her forehead. Was she willing to take a gamble on a dangerous game? The thought rattled her, igniting a confusion that had taken root. As tension enveloped her, an unexpected surge of determination pushed through the fear. Would she leave behind the remnants of her old self in pursuit of this new path? Or could she forge a way forward that honored both her ambitions and her principles? Emerging from the restroom, resolve rekindled, she strode back into the cafe. The moment had passed, but the stakes were still high. Daniel stood talking to Victor, both men turned toward her with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. The time had come to confront not just her choices, but also her own growing power, and in that moment, she realized that her journey had shifted from a passive observation to an active engagement. Emily was no longer just a player, she was ready to redefine the game. Let's talk, she said assertively, and both men leaned in, their expressions shifting, preparing for the unfolding drama. What revelations awaited as she navigated the treacherous waters ahead? Could she truly maintain control over her decisions, or would she find herself swept into a current she couldn't escape? Emily drew in a steady breath, a newfound urgency coursing through her veins as she re-entered the cafe. Her heart raced, but she silenced the chaotic thoughts swirling within her. The time for hesitation was over, the stakes were too significant for ambiguity. Daniel's intensity remained palpable and anchoring, yet unsettling presence amid her own tumult. Victor, however, emanated an unnerving calm, a predator poised for action. "I'm curious what you have to say now," he remarked, his tone playful yet edged with threat. It ignited something within her, she felt defiant, unwilling to be anyone's pawn. "I want to know exactly what you're offering," she started, locking eyes with Victor. "What does this path truly entail?" The clarity in her voice surprised even her. This was no longer a dance around the truth but a direct confrontation. Victor leaned back, an almost imperceptible smile playing at the corners of his lips. "Power," he said, the word dripping with allure. "Influence in this city, the ability to shape outcomes that matter not just for you, but for your daughter as well." The thought of securing a stable future for Lily made her instincts swell in both terror and temptation. Success, she understood, was often the flip side of compromise. But at what cost? "I need to protect her more than pursue empty prestige. This isn't a game," Emily stated, her voice a touch steadier, the resolve deepening. "Life is a game, Emily. Always has been. Those who know the rules play to win," Victor countered, his eyes narrowing slightly. He was trying to sell her a vision wrapped in power and safety. Yet, Daniel's presence was a stark reminder that spiraling too far into Victor's world could compromise her values irrevocably. Daniel stepped closer, his protective instincts flickering into the forefront. "You think you can play this game without losing yourself? Victor thrives in the shadows. If you step in, you must shed the light you carry." She felt the emotional weight of that statement, its truth digging under her skin. "But what does that mean for me? What about the woman I want to be?" The question resonated through the air, challenging both men to confront the implications of their words. "Who you want to be is irrelevant if you don't have the means to be her," Victor replied coolly. "Imagine not having to worry about every decision, having the resources to create the best life for your daughter. You could finally breathe." Yet, Emily felt the tightrope of her aspirations trembling beneath her. Was she ready to deliberately navigate the treacherous intersection of ambition and ethics? In this moment, she glimpsed two diverging paths, one leading toward significant power and success, but potentially corrupting her spirit, and the other toward a quieter life of integrity and smaller victories, but lacking the urgency her daughter required. "How do I know it won't change me for the worse?" she asked, hoping to validate her instincts. "Change is inevitable. It's how you respond to that change that matters," Victor said, leaning forward with intent, emboldened by her uncertainty. "But only you can decide if you'll adapt or resist. You might discover strengths you never knew you had." The idea of hidden resilience struck Emily like a thunderbolt. What if he was right? What if stepping into this world would not strip her of her core, but rather enhance her? Desperation tangled with ambition in her heart, igniting a flicker of hope that sent a rush of adrenaline coursing through her. "I'll need more than your words, Victor. I want to see proof demonstrations of the stakes involved in this game," she demanded, crossing her arms. This was not merely a negotiation, this was a reclamation of her agency. "Now that," Victor replied, a glint of amused respect in his eyes, "is the spirit I hoped would surface." Behind her, she sensed Daniel's disappointment, but his presence also offered a vital anchor. She felt his unwavering support but knew the tug-of-war for her heart and mind had only just begun. Leaving the small cafe felt heavier than before, as if decisions intertwined with her essence, ready to ignite transformative repercussions. But within the chaos, something inside her stirred a will to harness every potential, to emerge standing firm amid this unpredictable storm. As she took a step toward the door, a rush of determination and turmoil collided in her mind. She would explore this treacherous path, but make no mistake, she would tread carefully. She owed it to herself, and to Lily, to discover not just who she might become, but also the essence of the person she could never let go of. Yet, the cries of her conscience lingered within the shadows, reminding her of the cost. If she dared pursue this experience further, she knew she would step closer to pivotal crossroads. What lay beyond the threshold of her resolve? A revelation awaited that could either solidify her decisions or plunge her deeper into a web rich with contradictions and moral complexities. The streets outside felt muted, a stark contrast to the storm swirling inside Emily's mind. Each step away from the cafe pulled her deeper into uncharted territory. Her reflection fluttered in the windows of shopfronts as she walked, a stranger, caught between aspiration and authenticity. With every stride towards home, the weight of her choice pressed heavier on her shoulders. She drew a shaky breath, the air stifling in its familiarity. Was the promise of influence worth the potential erosion of her values? The pulsating energy of the cafe still clung to her skin, an unshakable reminder of Victor's enticing proposition. As she approached her apartment building, Emily's thoughts raced. She was thrust into a realm of uncertainty, the thrill of ambition now mingled with anxiety. There was a comfort to her routine life, 9-to-5 work, school pickups, and evening story time with Lily. Yet, as she opened the door to their home, the dullness of her surroundings mocked her burgeoning ambitions. "Mommy!" Lily's voice rang sweetly, summoning her from the emotional whirlwind. Emily knelt as her daughter rushed into her arms, the simple comforts of motherhood grounding her amidst turmoil. Lily's bright smile and innocent laughter reminded Emily of the stakes at hand. Protecting her daughter's future was everything, but did that mean sacrificing her own identity? "Did you have a good day?" Emily asked, her heart swelling at the sight of her daughter's joy. "Aha! Ms. Thompson said we're starting a garden," Lily chirped, bouncing with excitement. The joy radiating off her daughter ignited a flicker of purpose within Emily. This was her anchor, her North Star. Later that evening, as Lily settled into bed, Emily sat against the doorframe, her resolve hardening with each tick of the clock. She needed a plan and understanding of the world Victor spoke of. If she decided to venture into this realm, knowledge would be her sword. Research became her pursuit the moment Lily fell asleep. Under the dim glow of her laptop, Emily devoured information about influence, networks, and power dynamics within their city. It was intoxicating, a world filled with rules, alliances, and the subtle art of persuasion. Everything Victor promised began to congeal into something tangible. But behind the allure was a lingering question: what would it cost her? The next morning, Emily awoke with a clear intent. She donned an armor of professionalism, trading her usual attire for a tailored blazer and polished shoes. Confidence wrapped around her like a protective shroud. She had to master the knowledge first before she could engage further with Victor. Daniel noticed the shift immediately. He filled the space with his warmth, but his eyes reflected concern. "You're different today," he observed, a subtle weight hanging in his tone. "It's time for me to learn." "I can't ignore this," she stated firmly. "Just be careful. This is a dangerous game," he cautioned, a flicker of fear flaring across his features. "I know," she replied, feeling the gravity of her commitment settle in her gut. "But I need to explore this for us, for Lily." With Daniel's unease lingering, she left their conversation to hang in the air and dove into the day, sparking connections at work and networking with people who held the keys to the influence Victor spoke about. Each interaction added layers to her understanding of the fabric interwoven between power and consequence. As the days progressed, Emily began to uncover a talent for negotiation, a flicker of confidence sparking every time she implemented advice or pushed her limits during conversations. It felt like she was awakening an essential part of herself, one that had been stagnant for too long. Yet, for every accomplishment, the underlying fear of losing her moral compass loomed like a dark cloud above her, a reminder of the two paths that lay before her. The final straw came when she received a cryptic message from Victor, a simple request for a meeting. I have something essential to discuss, it read, sending adrenaline coursing through her veins. The convergence was near, her choices were fastening into a singular moment. What would she uncover in this upcoming meeting? Would Victor provide clarity, or further complicate her already tangled ambition? The thought made her heart race. A deeper understanding of the stakes was one step away, yet what awaited her on the other side felt perilous. As she gathered her thoughts, Emily realized she stood on the brink of change, a moment where the future would either empower her or demand a harder reckoning. What would this next confrontation reveal? And at what cost would her journey lead her closer to the power she craved? The humidity of the early evening wrapped around Emily like a damp cloak as she stepped into the upscale bar where Victor had arranged to meet. The buzzing atmosphere was charged with anticipation, yet unease gnawed at her gut. She straightened her blazer and took a moment to adjust to the glimmering world of whiskey-laden tables and low laughter. Here lay the connections she had been exploring, yet doubt lingered like a shadow. She spotted Victor across the room, his figure confidently outlined against the backdrop of clinking glasses and smoke. As their eyes met, a sliver of anxiety pierced through her resolve. He seemed larger than life, the embodiment of the influence she sought, and in that moment, she questioned her purpose. Was she ready to confront all that he represented? Emily, he greeted, his voice smooth and layered like fine silk. You've come prepared. Prepared for what? She replied, forcing herself to meet his gaze, determined not to show surrender. His grin was enigmatic. For a conversation that could redefine your path. You've been busy, haven't you? He gestured towards a dimly lit corner table, where a bottle of aged bourbon awaited. As they settled, Victor leaned in slightly, his tone dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. You've shown promise in your endeavors. I'm impressed. The way you navigated that negotiation with Parker's firm was brilliant. You understand now the nuances of influence. The words washed over her, both exhilarating and petrifying, igniting a rush she couldn't ignore. Yet, beneath the surface praise lay an unspoken challenge. But at what cost? She asked, her voice steadier than she felt. I still have principles. I won't compromise my values. Victor's demeanor shifted subtly. He regarded her, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. Values are essential, but they can also be a shackle. There's a dance between morality and ambition. I can show you how to lead without losing your essence. Emily inhaled sharply, the stakes were becoming more apparent with every word. What do you mean by that? He leaned back, arms crossed, expression contemplative. Imagine wielding influence so profound that your very presence commands respect. You protect your daughter's future, but you also gain the power to create change in your world. You can be a force for good, just as easily as you can choose to be self-serving. The key is in mastering the game. A murmur of doubt crept back in. Was this truly about bettering her life, or was it a seduction of power that led to ethical erosion? Before she could voice her concerns, Victor continued, I want you to join me in a project. A coalition of like-minded individuals. Together, we can bridge the gap between ambition and integrity, and I'll guide you through every step. But it requires commitment and adjustments to your current worldview. Emily weighed her options. The allure of influence pulsated within her, tempting yet suspicious. What awaited beyond this offer? What kind of adjustments? She pressed, her heart quickening. She needed to understand fully. Perspective, flexibility in thought, the willingness to embrace role shifts. You don't need to abandon your values, you just need to redefine them. You must think strategically about how they align with your goals, including your desires for Lily's future. His words resonated with her in ways she hadn't expected, and yet, a defensive wall began to spring up around her heart. I won't betray who I am, Victor. Then figure out who you want to become, he challenged, his eyes unyielding. The door to influence is wide, but it won't stay open forever. The weight of his ultimatum settled upon her, making it harder to breathe. Would she step through that door into uncharted spiritual territory? Was this the transformative moment she had sought, or one that could lead her into moral chaos? With each heartbeat, the conversation evolved from mere discourse to pivotal crossroads. Emily's mind raced with questions. Who would she become by accepting Victor's offer? Would blending her ambition with her ethics render a new kind of power, or merely a masquerade shrouded in deception? Just as determination began to replace her initial uncertainty, Victor's phone buzzed insistently on the table. He glanced at the screen, his countenance shifting subtly as an unread message flickered across it. "I need you to think this over. But remember, opportunities like this don't last," he said, before standing abruptly. "We'll talk again soon. You know where to find me." As he retreated into the crowd, Emily felt the overwhelming crush of possibility and peril intertwining. The bar's noise faded, replaced by the tension humming in her chest, a question echoing louder than before. What would happen if she stepped deeper into Victor's world? Would she end up transformed and empowered, or entwined in shadows too dark to escape? This path was no longer merely about her ambition, it became a crucible where her identity was on trial. And yet, her grasp on the answers slipped away as Victor's figure vanished into the shimmering night. Emily knew this was merely the beginning of a complicated battle within and around her, one that would ultimately define both her future and her essence. What awaited in the coming days would challenge everything she thought she knew. Emily stepped back into the humid night air, her heart still racing from her encounter with Victor. The vibrant cityscape felt surreal, a stark contrast to the internal chaos she couldn't shake. Each step away from the bar felt monumental, as if the ground beneath her was shifting along with her sense of self. How many times had she suppressed her ambitions in favor of a safe, predictable path? Yet here was Victor, standing as a gateway to a realm filled with promise and peril. She found herself questioning her trajectory, her purpose shifting like the shadows cast by the flickering streetlights. She arrived home and immediately sought the familiarity of her daughter's room, the soft pink walls and scattered toys grounding her in reality. Lily was asleep, blissfully unaware of the struggles that loomed ahead. In her mother's heart, a protective instinct flared. "What kind of life do I want for you, sweetheart?" she whispered, her voice barely a thread of sound in the stillness. That question echoed in Emily's mind like a siren, demanding an answer. Was the life she envisioned for Lily one of security, or should it be anchored in empowerment and independence? The dichotomy of her choices felt suffocating, yet exhilarating. She felt like a diver at the precipice of a vast ocean, torn between the safety of the shore and the allure of the deep unknown. Haunted by Victor's assertion that she needed to redefine her values, Emily turned to her laptop, instinctively scrolling through articles about leadership and influence. The clicking of keys felt like a lifeline, each stroke pushing her closer to understanding the fine line between ambition and ethics. But as the hours extended into the stillness of the night, confusion clouded her determination. Am I the person who steps into the dark or the one who stays safe in the light? She muttered, grappling with her identity. Perhaps she needed to embrace a new narrative, one where she wasn't merely protecting her values but actively reshaping them to suit an evolving world. With a fresh resolve, Emily decided to reach out to former colleagues and mentors, seeking insights and perspectives. She needed to create a foundation of knowledge upon which to build her future. The thought of gathering their voices ignited a flicker of excitement, countering her doubt. Maybe this was the strategic approach Victor hinted at, a way to forge alliances while remaining true to herself. Over the following week, she packed her schedule with meetings over coffee, lunch, and late-night brainstorming sessions. Each discussion revealed facets of her expertise that had lain dormant. The more she tapped into her network, the more her confidence swelled. Friends praised her insights, her ability to connect disparate ideas, and her unwavering resolve to enact positive change. But every time she sensed a glimmer of hope, Victor's words loomed in the back of her mind. Be willing to embrace role shifts. What did that really mean? She pondered it late into the night, the question amplified by every encouraging word spoken to her. Despite the encouragement, remnants of doubt clung on. Would this pursuit compromise her core values? Could leveraging her gifts lead to a form of influence that remained ethical? The lines were fading, intertwining ambition with a personal labyrinth of ethical dilemmas. In the heart of this transformative process, Emily faced the greatest challenge, the decision to call Victor. Would initiating contact signify her acceptance of all he embodied, or would it demonstrate her boldness in exploring her own version of influence? As her fingers hesitated over her phone, the implications resonated within her. This decision could redefine her entirely, choosing which path to carve in the murky waters of ambition. With a swift breath, she dialed his number. But as the phone rang, a sense of foreboding enveloped her. What awaited her on the other end? Would she find clarity or a deeper haze of moral ambiguity? Maybe this isn't just about me, she reasoned, a flicker of maturity illuminating her. Tension. I have to think of Lily. Before she could second-guess herself, Victor's voice pierced through the uncertainty, and with it came a promise of profound change or disaster. Emily stepped into Victor's office, a place infused with prestige and power. The polished floors echoed her footsteps like ripples of uncertainty trailing behind her. The walls adorned with imposing art pieces signified his authority in the city, an unspoken reminder of the world she now sought to navigate. Emily, he greeted, his demeanor calm yet charged. I was beginning to wonder if you'd reach out. She met his gaze, feeling a wave of determination rise within her. I wanted to talk about your proposal. I need clarity on what I would be entering into, she asserted, her voice steadier than it had been during their last meeting. Every moment away from Victor had allowed her to reflect and grow. Victor gestured for her to sit, his sharp eyes evaluating her as she took a seat across from the expansive desk. You've been doing your homework. I like that, he said, a glimmer of approval flashing in his expression. But understand this, clarity often comes with risks. Are you ready for that? Yes, Emily replied, a confidence anchoring her response as she felt the weight of her ambitions pushing her forward. I've realized that sacrificing my principles is not an option, but I also recognize the need to evolve. I want to explore how I can wield influence ethically. Victor's gaze sharpened, a mixture of intrigue and amusement crossing his face. Ah, someone who understands the duality of ambition. You can indeed remain ethical and powerful if you play your cards right. With each word, he unfolded a vision for her, detailing a network of professionals who thrived on influence while trying to navigate their own ethical boundaries. This was not merely an enticing opportunity, it was a foothold to redefine what success meant on her own terms. I want to be a part of it, she declared, recognizing the surge of empowerment that resonated with every syllable. But I won't compromise who I am. I need to build this network without losing my integrity. I want to uplift others while securing a future for my daughter. Victor nodded, impressed. Then let us begin. You won't simply be following orders, you'll be creating strategies. This is a chance for you to shape your destiny. That declaration shifted something inside her. This wasn't a decision made from desperation, it was born from a place of confidence and clarity. When she had first collided with Victor, she had feared losing herself, but now, she felt ready to grasp the power within her own hands. The following weeks became an exhilarating whirlwind, a reflection of her transformation. Emily engaged in project after project, leveraging her nursing background to craft strategies that went beyond medicine. She began consulting on health initiatives for communities, shaping discourse on wellness while simultaneously redefining her professional identity. Her confidence grew alongside her reputation, which burgeoned within the network Victor had introduced her to. She no longer felt like a pawn in someone else's game, she was charting her course, forging alliances, and standing firm in her values. Daniel watched her with respect as she began to rise, refocusing his energy on constructive support for Emily's endeavors. They often compared notes, enriching each other's perspectives with their growing understanding of ambition's nuances. Amid the change, Emily never lost sight of her initial intention: providing a better life for Lily. Every victory she achieved was accompanied by a promise in her heart, to remain present for her daughter, crafting a narrative of empowerment for both of them. One evening, as Emily returned home with fresh insights from a networking event, she found Lily sitting at the kitchen table, artfully arranging a project in preparation for school. The sight filled Emily with warmth, a reminder of her anchor amidst ambition. "Mom, look! I did this all by myself." Lily beamed. The excitement resonated within the walls, and Emily could see the vibrant future she was shaping not just for herself, but for her daughter. "It's beautiful, sweetie," Emily smiled, pride welling in her chest. Lily looked up, her curious eyes narrowed, the innocence palpable. "Are you really happy? With your new job and everything?" Emily knelt beside her, their bond palpable, and said, "Yes, I am. I'm doing something I believe in, and I'm trying to make things better for both of us." Lily grinned widely, her innocence wrapping around them like a warm blanket. In this moment, Emily felt the weight of her decision solidify into purpose. The world was indeed challenging, but she was reshaping it on her terms, redefining her values as a mother and as a professional. The impending challenges were still there, but now Emily was equipped with the tools to conquer them. Each week became a saga of resilience. She began to recognize the entrepreneur within her, the assertive woman who would not shy away from the call of influence while remaining rooted in her foundation of ethics. As she looked into her daughter's eyes, a depth of fulfillment filled her with clarity. She was on a path that honored both her ambition and the love for her child. She had ventured into personal and professional metamorphosis, becoming not just a participant but a transformational force in her own narrative. The life she had envisioned once seemed far away, but now it lay within her grasp, forged through growth and audacity. As the days rolled on, Emily felt not only championed by the world around her but emboldened to write her own story, a story of success, resilience, and unwavering integrity, echoing across the chapters of their lives. Empowerment had become not just her pursuit, but a legacy she could pass on to Lily, a purpose strong enough to conquer even the darkest of uncertainties. This clarity anchored her onward, reminding her the journey was just beginning. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to support a channel dedicated to personal overcoming stories. Don't wait even one more second.